I change my brain? Am I just a victim to who I am? I'm your host, Steve Sisler. Stay tuned for another episode of Behavioral Insights.
Welcome to Behavioral Insights. This is your host, Steve Sisler, and on episode 21, we're going to be talking about altruistic orientations. What does that really mean? Stay tuned. All right, folks, thanks for tuning in. We're at episode 21 today, and we're talking about altruism. So this information I'm going to be sharing today is actually coming out of my book, What Moves Us, an Integrated Look at Human Motivation. So if you're interested in more of this, that's where you can find it. So we're talking about altruism, and what does that mean? Really, altruism is about personal sacrifice. And chapter 8 in my book, What Moves Us, is entitled Personal Sacrifice. So that's the topic today. But I want to clarify some things about personal sacrifice that a lot of people don't think about. The first thing I want to clarify is that altruism is not synonymous with empathy. Okay, altruism is not empathy. It has nothing to do with empathy, to be honest. It has to do with what people are willing to let go of when it comes to what's theirs or what they desire or what maybe even somebody might think they deserve, and let it, fall into the hands of another. So we're not talking about empathy when we talk about your willingness to sacrifice something of yours for somebody else. Empathy would be another topic which we might cover in its fullness. But anyway, back to personal sacrifice. In all of these elements, personal sacrifice being one of them, power is another one, and originality is another one, and curiosity is another one. There's seven, and the book covers all seven in pretty deeply, actually. But we all have these internal motivations, drives, desires that are learned, and when we have an environment that allows for it, we feel better, we work better, things flow better, especially if our desires are in flow with what we're likely going to do in a particular situation. So you need to keep that in mind. But there are 5 different levels. There's average, and then there's high, very high, low, and very low. So we're talking about consistency levels. So if you have a very high consistency level in the personal sacrifice section, then you tend to be more vulnerable in the world, and you tend to give up what's yours easily so that somebody else can have it. And so we're going to kind of look into that a little bit and see what that says. What would be the opposite of self-sacrifice or altruism in the motivational orientations? It would be efficiency. Okay, it would be the economic drive. So don't be confused by the word economic. Efficiency is all about, what am I getting out of this deal? Think of it that way. So if you're about to do something, or somebody's asking you to do something for them, you might be thinking to yourself, I'm expending this energy towards you and sort of for you. So what do I get in return for that energy, right? So people that are higher or more have greater consistency in those types of needs, or those types of thoughts. It's going to challenge their their desire to sacrifice things. And so that's how you need to be thinking of that. What if you have a very low consistency level in efficiency? That means that you're easily satisfied. You're not thinking, what am I getting out of it? You're really not thinking that at all. And what if you're highly sacrificial when you have lower consistencies in efficiency? Then you're going to be a pushover. You're never going to be thinking about what's in it for you. You're always going to be feeling better about giving up what's yours and allowing somebody else to have it. So I'm not going to get too complex about this, but you need to understand it is actually complex. And so I've been working with people for, 30 some odd years, and dealing with issues such as this, 16 years with the tools that we have. And now we've created our own tools. And so we're looking to measure these things in people so that we can help people process the way they are and what they're doing and where they want to go and this type of thing. Imagine being completely unfamiliar with the kind of car you need to drive on a particular terrain. You would come to us and we would tell you what kind of car you have, what kind of model it is, and what its capacity for that kind of terrain is going to be. So that helps you make your decision, or at least not be surprised. I know a lot of people ask us about, change. So change doesn't come easy. You need to know that. It does not come easy. And to think that there are formulas around doing whatever you want in the world, or, hey, I'd like to be this type of a leader, or I'd like to do that. There are going to be challenges you're going to face if the tools necessary for doing that easily and comfortably are unavailable to your brain. That means you got to go to the machine shop and forge these tools. If they're not there, they're not there. And so, the way I look at it and the way we've looked at it for years around here is, why don't we do this? Why don't we put your car on the road that it fits best on, and then you could relax, be yourself, and be happy. And that's really what we want everybody to do. Here, we're trying to help you become the best version of you possible, not discard or discredit the way you are in favor of something else that you're not, and then hope we can all pull it off together. That's not the way we do stuff here, just so you know. Thinking about self-preservation and self-sacrifice. So self-preservation is really all about protecting yourself, right? It's the behavior in all of us that ensure our survival as an organism in the world. And we all have that. Self-preservation is very strong. Just, get into a situation where you're almost drowning. You'll see how strong it is. Our desire to live, our desire to protect ourselves, our desire to shield ourselves from hostile entities and anything like that. We all have built-in self-preservation. It's what urges animals to collect the energy and resources required, basically, to prolong their life and increase their chances of survival. And we all do this. So, when you go to work, you're entering a space that you have to, survive in or thrive in. Oh my gosh, I'm going to sneeze. Oh my God, excuse me. Wow. Oh, when you need to sneeze and then you get goosebumps, that's what just happened. That felt actually kind of good. All right. Back to this. So when you go to work, your brain, attempts to ensure its survival. Now, some people thrive at work, some people survive work. And it's going to depend on how well that work environment lines up with your motivational elements. If there's not alignment, there's going to be problems. And there could be a lot of problems. And we help people solve those problems. So think about your basic needs. food, water, shelter, right? We all need those. And if we don't have a shelter, we build a shelter. You know, if you crash a plane and you're a survivor and you're on an island, what do? The first thing we're supposed to do is build a shelter, secure water, and maybe trap a small animal so we can eat. So those are the necessities, right? That's what has to happen. Now, roughly 7 out of 8 people in the world have available to them most of their needs to be met. And so, and for usually for a lower cost than ever before. Than the rest of people, you know, they don't have, they have no resources at all. So this whole social analysis of self-preservation, what has it led to in the world? Well, seatbelt laws, for one, speed limits, airbags. What's another one? Texting regulations now that are coming out. Neighborhood watch programs. What is all this stuff? These are, laws and things that have been instituted in the world in an effort to ensure our survival as a species, right? That's why we have laws, right? If you didn't have laws, only semis would win at the intersection. And so everybody gets a turn, right? All of these things are designed to ensure better life, better existence, better survival among the species. So you need to understand this as well. Self-preservation really is what this economic value, this efficiency value is all about. The less amount of energy I have to expel in an effort to get what I believe I deserve or want in the world. And I'm not talking about the deserve system. That's within relationships. So that's completely different. So I don't want you to get hung up on that if you heard that podcast. So we're not talking about that. This is why that economic value or that efficiency value is opposed to the altruistic value. When you have these in their opposite positions, so let's say greater consistency in altruism, lesser consistency in economic drive, then you're going to have flow, right? Because they're opposites. So if one is high and one is low, then you've got flow. If they're both competing with each other, you don't have flow. You have what's known as a me-me conflict. Should I give it away or should I sell it? If you've ever had a yard sale and you and your spouse are getting rid of maybe baby furniture or something like that, and let's say it's been in the family a long time. Let's say it's an antique, and let's say it's an oak, and it's in great shape, and they don't make furniture like this anymore. Let's say all that. So the more I talk about that furniture, the greater value that furniture has. Let's say it's, 3 of your children have used it. So now it has sentimental value. So this is intrinsic worth. So as you put all these value elements together, it's aesthetically beautiful. The value keeps increasing the more I talk about this baby furniture. Now, let's say we have an economically driven husband who's efficient, and we have an altruistically driven wife. And let's say the baby furniture it's a dresser, a crib, and let's say like a changing table, okay? And it's really nice, and it's, it's from, 1940, and it's in excellent condition, and it's varnished, right? It's natural oak, really looks nice. It's been well kept. And let's say now a young couple pull up to the yard, and you could see that the wife is expecting, and they're looking at this furniture. Now, based upon their limited conversation that you can hear in the wind, based upon the way they're dressed, based upon the car they're driving, you can tell they're just starting out. It doesn't look like they have a lot of money. to be spending on things like this, which is why they're looking at yard sales and they're not at the store. And the wife, her heart starts to go out to this young couple. So you know what I mean by that. Now, this is not an empathetic response like you might think it is. And we're going to cover this in a minute. I'm building a story here for you. And then let's say the husband is not really paying attention. He doesn't know they're circling the wagons over there, and he's just whatever. He's on his phone. And then let's say the expectant mother comes over to the couple and says, is that a firm price on the baby furniture? Okay. Are you where I'm at here? Is this set up for you well? Can you imagine what's going to happen here? Let's say the husband's dominant and the wife is passive. Okay? Now we're building a scenario. What's going to happen? The husband wants to say that price is firm and the wife is ready to lower it. Can you see it? Okay? So this is how these things work. We could have guessed this was going to happen if we just had their numbers, right? I don't even need to know these people. I just need to know their levels of consistency when it comes to their primary emotions, their view of the world, their axiology, which would measure empathy. If I had that score, that would really play into it well. Their motivational orientations. Like once I have all the math, I can tell you what kind of conversation's going to pursue among this couple and what's likely to happen, depending upon how good the relationship is between the husband and the wife that are selling the furniture. All right. So I'm going to leave you hanging on that one. You can determine in your own mind what's likely to happen there. Now, when I talk about flow between what we value and what we're likely going to do, so there can be flow between values and behaviors and emotions, and there can be flow between values and values, differing values. We have active values, there's passive values, and I don't want to get on that all into that because we're talking about the altruistic value at this moment. But I also like to say the efficiency or the economic value would be holding hands with lower consistencies in the altruistic value. If they hold hands, that means they're pals, right? So sometimes your values pal around with each other. And those that pal, they have flow. So when you have high altruistic sentiments and you have low efficiency sentiments, meaning you're easily satisfied, you can see that there's hand holding there. It's going to be, a certain way. The odds of it playing out a particular way are really high, and we could guess what that is. So this is really begging the question, and this is what I want to get to. Social scientists basically have discovered some real interesting nuances deeper into this sacrificial element. So the question is personal sacrifice really sacrificial, right? That's a big question. And I've had people that I've been working with, and they kind of had to confront themselves because although they were highly sacrificial, it wasn't, the reasons behind it weren't what they thought. Okay. Now remember, and I say this over and over and over again, I'm going to keep saying it, your brain does not verify if what it's thinking and believing is accurate. It defends and justifies what it's thinking, believing, whether it's accurate or not. And that's what everybody does. I do it, you do it, everybody does it. And if you don't know you're doing it, it'll never be fixed. If you do know you're doing it, you have a chance. If you work your butt off, you can fix it to some degree. But you will never fix all of it, period. End of story on that one. So the question is self-sacrifice really self-sacrifice? So what is altruism? It's an individual performing an action, all right? It's performing an action which is at the cost of themselves, all right? So Once you get into a higher level or a more consistent level in altruism, there's a need to lose. All right. There's a need to lose. I call this the lose winner. I feel like I won because I lost. And some people, when they're dealing with other people, they need to lose in that relationship to feel at home. Okay. Sometimes we call that hell is home. What do you mean hell is home? Well, you're not at home unless you're sort of being taken advantage of. And so you will inadvertently and unconsciously seek out situations and people that will take advantage of you so you can feel at home in the relationship. All right. That's what happens. And some of you wouldn't have it any other way, even though you complain about it. And the only way you're going to get a handle on it is to learn about yourself and learn why things are happening. Have somebody walk with you through it and then give you some brain exercises and a bunch of other crap so that you can stop. Can you stop? Yes, you can, but it's not easy. It takes a little bit of work, and it takes becoming real with yourself. Most people aren't real with themselves. Think of the Matrix, right? The movie The Matrix. Ignorance is bliss, while he eats another piece of meat. Okay. Back to altruism being at the cost of oneself. So what do I want to say here? I want to talk about altruism versus egoism. All right. Altruism is the opposite of egoism, because egoism is really the motivation that we would use to increase our own welfare, right? What do we call this? We call this self-mastery in our profile. We have freedom and autonomy, self-mastery, and truth-seeking. Those are the three IMOs. Self-mastery, freedom-seeking or freedom and autonomy, and, truth, learning, truth-seeking. Those are the three patterns you're going to get. And you're going to be some of each or mostly one of those. You're always one of them, is great, has greater consistency. So if you have greater self-mastery, then your economic drive is higher, your power drive is higher, and your ability to sacrifice of yourself is lower because you're not in the business of losing, you're in the business of winning, right? So does that mean you're non-empathetic? No, it has nothing to do with that. You see, this is how this starts to come out. You have to understand that just because you like building, things for yourself, building your own home, getting your own piece of land, rather than moving into somebody else's piece of land. You're like, we got to get out of this apartment and get our own home. I'm tired of throwing money into the wind. People that start talking this way, you can start seeing patterns here. And then they'll either imagine that happening, make that happen, hope it happens, doubt it'll happen, right? So how long, maybe you're in your apartment for, 15 years and you've wanted to get out for 15 years. You couldn't make it happen, right? So what does that mean? Well, you understand that you want out because you have mental assent to the fact that every time you write a check for rent, it's not going to anything you own. It's going towards something somebody else owns. Now, that's fine in the whole scheme of things. You can't take anything with you when you die, so I get that. But people that, feel a certain way about these things are feeling that way because of the way their emotions are geared, the way they're wired, right? And so there'll be certain people that will get a home early. I didn't get a home until 18 years of marriage. I was married 18 years before I bought my first house. So what does that tell you? It tells you that my altruistic element was extremely high and my economic element was extremely low, right? I didn't care. And there's a reason for that. I wasn't schooled in these different things. No one in our family ever talked about, saving money, right? My parents gave away I think 7 cars while I was growing up. including giving cars to us. So they didn't save money. They would always help people out, give money away. I remember my grandfather coming to our home when I was just little, maybe 10 or something, and he was upset because he had been let go, early retirement. He was in insurance sales, and they were poor. My grandparents never owned a home. They lived in an apartment in Quincy, Massachusetts, their whole life. My mother would tell me that when she was a kid and my grandfather would be going out on calls, he would cut the bottom. He would cut, the cereal box when the cereal box was empty. He would cut out the shape of his shoes, like little soles, and put them in his shoes because he had holes in the bottom of his shoes, and he would put the cereal box cutouts into his shoes to keep his feet from hitting the pavement through the holes. But he couldn't afford new shoes. Must have been a terrible salesman, come to think of this. Anyway, I didn't buy a house till I was, married 18 years because I didn't value any of those things. So what do we call that? We call that easily satisfied, right? We could live anywhere and be happy, and we lived in some real terrible spots sometimes, starting out. Well, not terrible, but, compared to where we are now, it wasn't that great. I remember in 1985, we had an apartment. We had a mattress and a lamp. That's it. We had dishes, clothes, a mattress, and a lamp. And I rented the lamp from Finger Furniture. I rented the lamp for $6 a month so we could have a light by the bed. And the lamp was sitting on a box that 4 gallons of paint came in, that I used to paint the apartment. And the box, when we were done, we used it as a table, and we put like a little cloth over it, like a dish towel. And then the rented lamp went on top of that. And then somebody told me, dude, just go down to the thrift store and buy a cheap lamp. You're throwing your money away. I didn't even, think that way. To let you know, where I was. I'm better now, but still, when I'm working, I'm not thinking about ways to make money. I'm thinking about ways to help people. That's where I begin. And it takes a lot of energy to think otherwise for me. Does that mean I'm super empathetic? No, it doesn't. I do have empathy, but I wouldn't consider myself an empath like other people I know and have analyzed. So I don't want you associating low economic drive and high self-sacrifice for empathy, because they're not the same. All right. Now, I want to talk a little bit about this. God, here's what happens with me. I sit here and I've listened to a couple of these podcasts, right? And I do a lot of that. What is that? All right. You may be wondering what that is. And if you've been listening to any of these, you're used to it now. And if you talk to me at all, this is what I do. And think of every time I'm doing I'm going through files, like in my mind. I'm going through this file folder, and I'm looking at, every time I go, I'm like putting my hand in the file, looking at a piece of paper. You ever seen on the forensic shows where they got a flashlight and they're breaking into this place and they're looking for someone's records, and they're in the file cabinet with the flashlight in their mouth, shining a light, and they're taking their hands and they're going through the records looking for the right name. That's me looking for the right word, the right thing to say. My mind, does that. It just goes through these files, and as I'm going through these files, I'm going, Anyway, want to get that out of the way. What's going on here with this being self-sacrificial? Now, this has come under scrutiny not by just me, but it's come under scrutiny by other people in the field, the sciences as well. And so, the International Encyclopedia of the Social Sciences, how are they describing psychological altruism? It's really a motivational state with the goal, right, of increasing another person's welfare. Period. That's it. That's the quote. Motivational state with the goal of increasing another's welfare. And remember, this is juxtaposed to psychological egoism, which is about increasing your own welfare. And we measure both of those things, okay? But to what degree is this true? Right? This is what I'm raising this question today on this podcast. To what degree is this true? The idea of whether or not, we're truly adept as human beings to psychological altruism has come under scrutiny. Okay, it really has. And so I've researched some of this. All right. Some definitions do specify a self-sacrificial, let's say, nature to altruism, and a lack of external rewards for selfless behaviors. All right. So let's say, remember I said earlier, it's a lose-win. So if I lose, you win, I win. But this is the question. Are you really losing? Okay? Are you losing? Are you losing everything? Because altruism has its own set of benefits. Okay? What do you mean, Steve? I mean, we feel good and we have a greater sense of worth when we're enacting an altruistic action. All right? The selflessness that we would associate with altruistic acts is brought into question and has to be brought into question if we're feeling a greater sense of self-worth when enacting altruistically in the world. All right? So there's a push and a pull between egoism and altruism, and the greater energy is the egoism. That has the greater energy. Self-improvement, self-preservation has a greater degree of energy, okay, than demise, let's say. It's got a far greater amount of natural energy. And this is what people need to know. Because what it appears is, through these social science studies, that humans are actually exchanging certain actions and things, so ideas, actions, and things, for what? Positive feelings of self. Okay? This, in my opinion, is the principle, the true principle of altruistic behavior. Now, you guys know, I've talked about this in the past, that I come from a Christian background, and not only that, but seminary and all that. A lot of years, 40 some odd years in that world. This reminds me of something that we read in the Gospels of the New Testament, Matthew chapter 6, right? It's around those Beatitude area in the Bible. And Jesus said, be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of other people, right? So that what? You can be seen by them. In other words, the righteous acts were only done in an effort to be seen doing it. And this was Jesus's cause against them, against, the hypocrites. We'll call them the hypocrites, the Pharisees, all right? And so it's important that you understand that. So, he would say things like, when you give to the needy, don't sound the trumpet. All right. Like blow a horn. Hey, guess what I'm about to do? Right. Give to the needy. Don't sound the trumpet as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and on the streets. Why? And then he adds this, to be praised by people. Then he said, truly I tell you, you already have your full reward if this is what you're doing. So what he was doing was, in the first century, this is a long time ago, folks. In the first century, people were doing acts of kindness not because they were trying to be kind, but because they wanted to be seen as kind. Okay? They wanted people to believe they were kind. And if they thought others thought they were kind, it made them feel better about who they were. So what is the goal? Giving to the needy or feeling better about who you are in the world? Well, the goal is feeling better about who you are in the world, or nourishing your egoism. You use your altruism as a nourishing agent for your egoism. All right? Do you know how many people are doing this and nobody knows it? All right? Because remember, this is an exchange. All right? This is an exchange. And it's actually called social exchange theory. All right. Social exchange theory is when we make an exchange in an effort to feel better about who we are in the world. We're horse trading. All right. With the world and with people. We're horse trading. And so this is how this works. So I agree with that statement in the New Testament. It's actually Matthew 6:1-2, by the way. I agree with those statements that there are plenty of people in the world that are giving for all the wrong reasons. And then there are people in the world that are giving for all the wrong reasons, but not the same reasons as the Pharisees were doing it in this story. So this social exchange theory is really a sociological, it's a psychological theory that considers the natural social behaviors that develop, right, between the interaction of two parties that implement a cost-benefit analysis to determine risks and benefits, human risks and human benefits, right? What if I feel like a shit all the time, all right? Now you got to realize this is happening to a lot of people. Now, in our database, our self-esteem scores in our database, and there's tens of thousands of people in there, all across not only the country, but the world. But the people in that database, it's around 84%, where people have negative thoughts about their own personal intrinsic value in the world. And it's only around 16% that have positive thoughts, that don't understand why somebody doesn't see what they're bringing to the table when they enter this job. Everybody else is hoping they've got something to bring to the table. You wouldn't know that to watch people, would you? Because you can't see self-worth from actions. You can't see it like you can other actions, like the way somebody stands or the way their tone of voice or something like that. It's hard to see. Now, I can see it often, but I've just learned over the many, many years I've been doing this what to look for. There's social cues that you can see, and that can be eye movement and different things like this. We call them tells. So anyway, you need to think about this. Social exchange theory is really about leveraging your sense of self in the world with other people. And I have found that now this is what I have found as a rule. All right. I'm calling this a rule because it's most of the time. I have found that people that have a greater focus on sacrificing their own things, time, energy for other people are doing it because They don't feel good about who they are. And these acts of kindness, these sacrificial acts, are really self-help tools. Okay? They are not, I'm so benevolent. It's, I don't feel good about who I am, and I don't believe I'm a good person if I don't do this for you, so I'm going to do this for you so that I can be and feel like a good person. All right? You know, a lot of people that sacrifice their own time and energy and resources for other people, if they don't do it, they feel like a bad person. Now, here's what I want you to think about. Let's say, I'll pick a female for this particular illustration. Let's say this female, you've been saving up some money for these shoes you want, and let's say they're hard to come by, and they're going to be on sale this Saturday at 9 a.m. at a particular store, and the sale's going to run till about 2 in the afternoon. And you're shocked that this is going to happen. You've been waiting. And let's say your feet are a funky size, meaning when you go to try on shoes, you could never send somebody to do it for you. You have to go in there, put them on, walk around, adjust the straps, because just so that maybe you have a bunion or something like that. And so therefore it's technical, and you need to really make sure you've got the right shoe. All right, I'm just laying the groundwork here. Now let's say you plan on doing this, you plan on going, you've been planning for a while because you knew the sale was coming because you know somebody that works there. And they told you, coming up, we're going to be having a sale. All right. Let's say it's Thursday and Saturday is the day. And now a really good friend of yours calls you up all upset, crying because they needed somebody to help them on Saturday to do some things. It's going to take all day. I didn't know who else to call, so I'm calling you. All right. Now, all of you listening to this, you may already be feeling this, right? So if this person that just received this phone call is a passive brain type who hopes and doubts, if this person is a passive/active brain type who imagines and hopes, if this person also is self-satisfied, right? They don't have high efficiency drive, and they are high or very high in their altruistic energies. What are they going to do? They're going to forego the shoes. Automatic. That's an automatic impulse. They're not going to say, oh, sorry, I can't help you. I'm busy on Saturday. They're not going to do that. I'm telling you right now, they're not going to do it. What are they going to do? Oh, that's terrible. Yeah, no, I can definitely help you. And then in the back of their mind, they're thinking of this sale, and they're like, well, it's not like they're never going to be on sale again, right? So what is their brain doing? Is it verifying if this was a good idea? No, it's justifying the action that your brain made unconsciously before the phone even rang. I could have told you what you were going to do. Before that phone even rang, you were going to throw yourself on the spear for this person. Because if you don't, you're going to feel like you're bad. All right? Now, would it be wrong of you to say, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I already have plans on Saturday. I just can't get out of them. What would you feel like? Now, some of you listening are thinking, well, that would be a lie. I just can't get out of them. That's a lie, right? See, you're looking at this story, and based on your particular brain bias, you're making judgments that are built in and designed to support what you think and feel, regardless of how true it is. That's what everybody does, right? So what if Susan, who wanted to buy the shoes, is saying, you know what, Saturday's a Susan day. Saturday's a Susan day. I haven't had a Susan day in 8 days. It's Susan time. And nobody's going to take that from me because Susan wants these shoes. And there's nothing wrong with wanting shoes. I need shoes. The shoes I have, the strap is broken. And I need some new shoes. Deborah, who's calling, needs help on Saturday. Okay, there's 300,000 people in town, and she's got friends, blah blah blah. But she's calling. Why is Deborah calling Susan? Why was that the first thought she had? I'll tell you why. Likely, that's the first thought Deborah had. It's her first thought because she knows Susan never says no. She knows that. She knows she never said no. So what is Deborah doing? Deborah is operating out of psychological egoism. I need somebody's help for me in my life, right? I got some things that need to be done. I can't do it without help. And the person that was going to help me bailed out. I need somebody else to help me. Who can I come up with in my mind that I know will not push back on this and just come and help me? Susan. Okay? Now, Susan is a pushover because Susan's extremely low dominant. She's high patient and she's low efficiently driven and she's self-sacrificing. Okay? So she's a pushover. So Deborah is allowed to operate out of psychological egoism, but she would get upset if Susan shocked her by operating out of the same principles she's operating out of and slipped into a mode of psychological egoism, said, I'm really sorry, I can't, I'm busy on Saturday, can't get out of it. What are you doing? Oh, I'm going to get these shoes that I've been waiting for forever, and I need these new shoes. And it's the only time available, so I got to get them. Now, what are your thoughts as I'm telling you this story? How many people listening to me right now think Susan's bad? Susan's a bad girl. She's bad. She doesn't care about folks, right? Is that what you're thinking? Or are you thinking, you know what? There's nothing wrong with Susan taking care of Susan. What is wrong with getting a pair of shoes that you really want and have been waiting a long time for, putting a lot of energy into saving up for, blah, 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 blah. And here comes the day, and you need some time to yourself because the kids have been in your hair all week. You're exhausted. You need a little me time. Is that really all that bad? Or is it only bad because Deborah is losing and not winning? Right? What's going on, folks? What are you thinking? All right. This personal reward for sacrificial behaviors, I feel, is Susan going to just sacrifice her day at the shoe store because, she feels like a shit if she doesn't? What if she's healthy? What if she has strong emotional health? Says, you know what? This is a me day on Saturday. Can't do it. Why don't you call Joan? Or somebody else. Well, the reason why Deborah's likely not calling anybody else is because it might be a tug of war, and she knows with Susan, there's no war. Susan never fights for what Susan wants. Susan only settles for what Susan can get, and Deborah knows it. She knows it. So that's the first person she's calling, right? And it would be a shock if this social exchange theory didn't work right for her. And she might develop an attitude now against Susan. You weren't there for me, right? You weren't there for me. Rather than, you know what, Susan? It's about time you stood up for yourself and did something for yourself. People take advantage of you, including me, all the time. Good for you, girl. You go, girl, right? That kind of thinking. Is that what Deborah's going to do? How likely is that? Are you getting this, folks? How many of you ever have me time and feel good about doing something for yourself and realize there's nothing wrong with it? Huh? Right? Okay? So just look at the world around you. Just look at the world around you. Okay, stop. Now look at the world within you. All right? Is it as functional? It's likely not. All right? You know how many people are dysfunctional? Every single one. But where is the dysfunction? Right? Where is it? And so it's really important that you understand how this works. So anyway, I don't know that I want to go more into that. This is just the tip of the tip of the tip of the iceberg. And I've got a whole chapter on this in my book, What Moves Us. You may want to look at it. And so some people, their job, their role in the world is to lose so they can feel better about who they are in the earth. And they think they're just nice. And so I'm talking about the extremes here, and there are plenty of them. So you need to think about where you're at. And when people make demands on you, ask of you, call on you, and you want to say no, but you say yes, do you know what that is? I'm going to tell you. You know what it is? It's called self-betrayal. You betray yourself for somebody else, not because you want to help them, because you fear looking like a bad person if you don't. That's the wrong reason to help people. Flat out, the wrong reason to help people. If that's what you're doing, something's broke in your brain. Something's broken in there, and you got to fix it. And so you might be thinking right now, okay, Steve, how do I fix this? How can I fix this? Well, you got to start with realizing something's wrong, period. That's where you begin. So maybe you're realizing that right now listening to me. Something's wrong here, all right? Something's wrong. I'm spending too much of my time on other people's stuff. I'm walking their dogs. I'm watching their kids. I'm toting people all over the neighborhood in my car. Whatever the case may be. What is it that's happening? And you don't have to be a female. You can be a male and be doing this. All right? I don't think it's gender incentive here. It could be anybody. But the real problem is you have an inability to say no, because when you do, you feel like a bad person. All right? So these are the people I'm talking about, whether you're a male or a female, I don't care. But if you feel like a bad person when you say no, then that's a problem. So what can you do? What can you do? Well, number one, realize that's a bad thing to do. That's not working for you, and it shouldn't be that way. You should be able to feel good about saying no. Okay? And if you don't, that's nobody's fault but yours. All right? Because a lot of times we want to blame the other people that are asking, and rather than blaming ourselves for not doing what we actually want to do, which is stay home and watch television or go swimming or do something other than bail out your ass again. Because that might be what you're thinking, but you can't do it because you don't want to look like a bad person. What can you do about this? What can you do about it? Here's what I would suggest you do. You ask yourself the question in your mind when somebody asks of you, let's say your name is Susan. We'll just stick with that name. Does Susan want to do this? Does Susan want to do this? You just ask it in your mind. If the answer is no, then you just tell them, I can't help you with that. I'm not going to be able to help you with that. Can't do it. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, I get it. I can't do it. Can't do it. That's not going to work for me. I've got other plans. I can't. I keep putting these plans off, and I just can't keep doing it. So thanks for understanding, blah, 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 blah. That kind of a thing. Some of you can't do that on a face-to-face. Can't do it face-to-face. So here's what you do. When somebody asks you something, say, listen, can I get back to you on that? I'm not sure if that's going to work for me or not, so let me get back to you on that. And then get out of that space. Get out of there. Get the hell out. Run for your life, right? Get into a secure place where they're not there. They're not there. They're not looking at you, okay? They're not giving you that bottom lip, and you're pulling on your heartstrings and all that. Nobody's there. And then you call somebody that that's a good friend of yours. Maybe it's your mate, okay? Maybe it's a good friend. Say, listen, I'm in a tizzy. I'm in a tizzy right now. What's the matter? Well, somebody asked me to do something. I don't want to do it. You know me, I'm the pushover, and I'm trying to fix it. I just need you in my corner for a minute. Can we have a conversation here? Yes. All right. And then let them talk you down, right? Let them talk you down. Yeah, I'm so proud of you that you've gone this far, and encourage you, right? So you see what you're doing here? You're building up, you're going to the gym and you're building up some muscle here. Muscle to say no, because you've been saying yes so long, you don't even know what that looks like. You need to stop it. Now, that doesn't mean you say no every time. It means you don't say you don't say yes all the time. And so then you could make a phone call, shoot an email, or a text. Thank God for social media now. Say, listen, I was thinking about what you said. I'm not going to be able to do it. I'm really sorry. Thanks for your patience, or thanks for understanding. Appreciate you. Blah, 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 blah. Done. Right? Done. What are the odds of them calling up going, what happened? You never say no to me. That's not going to happen, folks. That's not going to happen. All right? So again, realize it's a problem, number one. Number two, get somebody in on it with you. Don't go with a lone ranger. Don't do it. It doesn't work. Get somebody in on your process of trying to fix this in yourself. And then when anybody asks you for favors, ask yourself in your mind when they're asking you, do I really want to do this? And if the answer is no, then you tell them no. You tell them you can't. And if you can't do that in that moment, tell them, listen, let me get back to you on this. I can't give you an answer on this right now. I'm not sure what's happening, so I want to get back to you. And then get out of that space and get back to them later through another venue than face-to-face, and then tell them you can't do it. All right? Those are some ways you can do that. Now, is that all you need to do? No. What needs to happen is you have to build up your own personal strength. You have to build up your own psychological ego bank because it's too low. There's balance. Balance is the key to life. Oxygen in, carbon dioxide out, and that's an even exchange, which keeps you alive. But if that exchange changes, you hyperventilate. All right? And some people are emotionally hyperventilating because they don't breathe right. They say yes 3 times, 5 times, 10 times, 20 times. They say no once or never. That's bad. That's out of balance. Can't do it. So you need to learn to be able to say no and realize that doesn't make you a bad person. Where's all this bad person crap coming from? You need to ask yourself that. Why do I always feel bad when I stand up for myself or when I want something? Like, where's this coming from? Right? Because it's coming from somewhere. All right? And so anyway, I'm kind of going off here and just repeating myself over and over again. I realize that. But you need to understand something. If you have a real difficult time saying no, you want that fixed. And it begins with how you view yourself. Because if you think you're bad because you can't help somebody or you don't want to help somebody, that's a problem. All right? That's a problem. So that's all for today. That's all I'm going to say. There's so much more I could say here, but I just got to call it quits. Anyway, all right. So again, let me recommend my book, What Moves Us, an integrated look at human motivation. The book's, I think, about 300 pages long or so. I think 302 pages to be exact. Filled with some great information. And it will really help you understand yourself, locate yourself, blah, blah, blah. All right. I really appreciate you joining me again. This has been episode 21, Personal Sacrifice. And I'm not sure what I'm going to name it. But until next time, have yourself a great day.